In this video we're going to look at how to create the columns in the building, in the Dobson building. There are a couple of different columns. We have the I-beams here, then we have the concrete columns here, I-columns, and the concrete columns here, and then the concrete columns on the front. Same columns are repeated throughout the building, so you can use the methods that I talk about here and then complete the entire building's columns. So let's start with the I-columns, which are quite easy to create. What you need to do is you need to go to columns under architecture, go to columns and click on this small arrow here and go to structural columns instead of architectural columns. Go to structural columns, and under structural columns you have the I columns, and I'm just going to use the one that I'm we can look at the different types, but I'm just going to use this and see if it works with the size that I have, because I don't know the size that they required. So I'm gonna go with the I, and I'm gonna make some changes here. So I'm gonna make it height, and I'm gonna make this from level 1 to level 2. That's how it's gonna work. I'm gonna zoom in a tad so that I can see. Now this I works perfectly. So the I that I'm using is the 10 by 49, so I'm gonna use that. It's a little bit bigger than what I want, but that's fine. That's that, and you can just place these one here as well. There are several more I-columns, I-beams, I-columns, sorry, around the building that you might see. Now these probably you won't see the I column essentially. I just want to show you the I, how to create an I, but because it's shown in the plan, and if it's shown in the plan, when you cut your plans, you should see the I column as well as the casing that we have, the concrete casing around. So I just want to show you how to create the I column in the middle. Now once you create the I column, you should go in and create the concrete columns as well. So the concrete columns, we're just going to create the concrete columns the first floor, because that's all we're going to see. So the concrete columns, you go to architectural, and let's see if this works. Well, we need a smaller one, so 18 by 18. If you go to 18 by 18 rectangular columns, that works perfectly. So the height needs to be at level 2, and you can just place it like so. Now why did we create the I columns if they don't show externally? Because when you create the plans, the set of construction drawings, you need to see where the eyes are. So that's why we created the I columns. But otherwise, in the renderings, you only see the casing, the concrete casing around the I columns. So that's how you create the I columns. The next type of columns. Now let's see how that looks like before we go into the next one. You make a 3D view here. See, you have the columns here nicely placed, so that looks good. The next type of columns that we have are these ones. Now if you go to an elevation I'm sorry, if you go to the south elevation, you'd see that the column here goes up to level 2, the column here goes up to level 3, and the ones afterwards go up to all the way up to level 4. So the column, especially if you take a look at the picture here, you'd see that these columns are visible from outside. It doesn't go through the brick veneer, but you can see it through the glass curtain wall. So we need to see those. The first one goes up to level 2, the second one goes up to level 3, the rest goes way up to level 4. So we need to create those columns so that we can see it from outside. So let's go ahead and go to level 1, and let's create this first column. To create the column, since we don't have a template for those, I'm gonna make myself a column. I'm gonna go and model in place, and the category that I'm gonna use is obviously columns. I'm gonna say OK, and column 1 is fine. And now I have the option of extruding these columns. So I can click on extrusion, and the extrusion start is going to be 0 because it starts from level 1, goes up to level 2, which is 14 feet. and then I can just use my pick lines tool to get these two lines, and I'm going to use an arc here just to draw the circular form, something like that. And once I'm finished, that should be done, and I can take a look at it if I wanted to. But this one, you don't really see this column from outside or inside, you just see this edge, so we don't need to go in and take a look at it. Let's create the rest of it and go and take a look at how it's going to look like. So I'm going to go back, finish the model, go back to architecture, go back to component, model in place, column, say okay, it's going to be column 2, and this one, it goes up to level 3, so I'm going to go with extrusion, and this needs to become 28. Going to use the same pick lines and the arc here, so it doesn't go through the brick wall. Now this is the brick wall's surface, so I'm gonna end my column somewhere about here. I'm gonna finish it, and I can finish the model. Now this one, it goes up to level these three go up to all the way up to level 4. So let's do that. I'm going to go to components, model in place, column 3, and I can do an extrusion. Extrusion start is 0, extrusion end is going to be 42, and I can go ahead and pick the lines. Well, instead of 42, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it 41, just because I don't want the columns to I don't want to be able to see the columns from the top flow. It just goes up to level 42 all the way. So instead of 42, I'm going to make it 41, and let's make it 41 and 6 inches, right? So again, I'm going to make sure that it's inside the brick veneer. It just cuts through the glass, but it's not completely, it's completely hidden really. So 41.6, finished up, and that's it, and finish this off. And what I can do is now next I can copy these to the others, because it's going to be the same thing. So I could do multiple copy, but it's just one more. So there we go. So once that's done, let's go ahead and take a look at it from outside. And we see the columns from outside, right? See, it's not cutting through the brick veneer, but it's cutting through the glass, and that's how we want to see. And it's not showing up here, because if we had it at 42 feet, if we had these columns at 42 feet, you'd begin to see it from the top. I can show it quite easily here. If you go to edit in place and select the column and then make it 42. Let's make it 42. Oops. And apply. You begin to see the top of the column here. So that's why we made it 41 and 6 inches. There you go. That's perfect. Finish, and that's done. So that if you go into level 1 plan, another thing that you would want to do is you would want to add the eye columns here as well, the eyes. So the same way, what you would do is you would go to column, structural, and then just add these. The heights, you need to make sure that this is level 2, this is level 3, and these 3 are all they go up to level 4. The next type of column that I want to talk about are these two columns in the front. Now, we don't really know much detail about these. You see a circle, and there's an inner circle as well. Now, the only clue that we have for this is these columns. I don't know where this is, but I assume that the front columns look similar to these. Now, they have an eye jutting out from the top, which is similar to the ones in the back. If you go here, you have a circular column with the eye jutting out. Similarly, in this one, I'm assuming that a small circular column juts out from the larger base column. So we can create those columns. Let's see how we can make those. The same way that we created the custom front columns, I'm going to go into component, model in place. I'm going to create a column 6, that is fine. Now this column, this is from level 1 to level 2, and but we need a small gap in between because we need to have this small circular column part jutting through. So instead of making it go all the way up to 14 feet, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it go up to 12 feet and 6 inches. Let's see what happens with that. I'm going to use pick lines. I'm going to make these. And I'm going to finish it up. So this is good. Seems fine. And I can finish up the model. And we can take a look at how it looks like if you go to the 3D view. So those are the 2 columns. And in the middle we need to have the smaller columns jutting up towards the second floor. We can easily do that. I'm going to go here. Since I can't see the smaller columns, I'm just going to move these for the moment. It's okay. We can attach them again. I'm going to go to architecture, go to column, and go to components, model in place. I'm going to make another smaller column, and this one, extrusion, it goes all the way. Oops, what happened? It's gonna, I think I messed up. Let me go back. Well, what I'm going to do is go to architecture, component, model in place, columns, and column 7, and extrusion. And this one, it's gonna go all the way up to 14 feet, right, from 0. And I'm gonna pick the lines for these 2, finish it up, unfinished model, and then I'm gonna just move these right here. Not exactly perfect. There you go. Alright, now if I go into my 3D view, I should see the columns with the small part jutting up towards the ceiling. So that's how you create the columns. Now the only thing that you need to also be aware of is make sure that you add the eye columns in the middle for every column that you have here, and then add the casing, the structural casing. So that's about the columns. I think we've created most of the components, the external components and the building envelope itself. We've completed most of it. The next couple of videos that I want to use is I want to talk about schedules, so door window schedules and other types of finishing schedules and such. So in the next couple of videos we'll be talking about those.